and we have Mr. Bailey and Mr. Lewin, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Miata, Mr. Milius present. We're starting in the afternoon because this morning Mr. Durst had, well, you can make a record about what happened, but a personal problem that required him to return to the jail and then return here this afternoon. Mr. DeGuerin, you wish to make a record. We had a discussion about what happened and the efforts the court would take. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to make a record so the record is clear that Mr. Durst, at some time before he arrived at the courthouse this morning, was incontinent and had diarrhea and was unable to change or to be in court, and it was very awful foul, and so he had to be returned to the jail to be cleaned up. But it's not part of the bailiff's responsibilities to do that, and I'm concerned because it shows further deterioration of Mr. Durst's physical condition, and as the court knows, we're going to have him examined tomorrow.
All right, I don't know if that's true. I mean, he had the diarrhea, and that's unfortunate, and it's happened before, but he had to go back to jail to be cleaned up. So we did that. I was able to make some phone calls to get him cleaned up and brought back here today, so we don't lose court time. Anything else?
Well, as a layman, I know that diarrhea often causes dehydration, and that's a serious condition, particularly given Mr. Durst's myriad of other conditions.
Luckily, we don't need to depend on laymen because he's basically in a hospital bed, so I think the county has demonstrated that they can take proper care of Mr. Durst. Your Honor, I just heard Mr. DeGuerin mention that he'll be seen by a doctor tomorrow. Does that mean, is there an issue with court tomorrow?
No, not at all. It's a matter of convenience. We're letting him.
Thank you very much to the court for saving half of today, Your Honor. We very much appreciate it.
No, I think for everyone's sake and for everyone's health, the sooner we finish, the better. And we'll take whatever steps we need to do to mitigate and ameliorate, but the trial has to go forward so long as Mr. Durst is confident to do so.
You know, if the court needs it, I can't remember. I don't think it's a juror issue, but we are, if the court needs us this Thursday, we're definitely willing to be here. I know the plan was to be dark this Thursday, but if it's my memory.
No, it's next Thursday.
Next Thursday, July 22nd.
The 22nd, I'm sorry. That's what I was going to say is yes, on the 22nd, if the court.
I won't be here, that's why it's dark.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
No,
Got it.
we all have a long, well, I don't have a long weekend. I have other cases on Friday. But I am alerted that there's an appointment on August 10 for Mr. Durst.
Yes.
So we'll be dark on August 10. We're going to be, I'm going to accommodate the juror on August 2 by starting late. I am going to accommodate all of us on next Monday to start at 10, just in case the hearing takes a little bit of extra time with the motion to quash and protective order by the hit the ground running people. All right?
Your Honor, I don't know if we're going to be able to what the situation will be, but I know that we are discussing some issues with respect to the testimony of Mr. Jarecki and Mr. Smerling, discussing those with Mr. Lewis, so we'll see if that ends up making that motion not need to happen. I don't know what will occur, but we're trying to address it as quickly as we can.
Great. And I received stipulations, I think 65 through 68 through from the parties. So the court accepts those stipulations.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can we bring in the jurors? And we're resuming the reading?
Yes.
All right. We'll do a formal opening. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. That's Jim Carrey in the Truman Show, right? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Department 1. All jurors and alternates are present. Mr. Durst is present with Mr. Chesnoff and Mr. DeGuerin. We have Mr. Balian, Mr. Lewin, Mr. Milius, Mr. Henderson, and Mr. Miata. And our readers have returned. Thank you. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Again, obviously unavoidable. I want us to be in session 9 o'clock till 12, 1:30 to 4:30 without any interruptions. I can't help it when things intervene, and I do apologize. Just so you know, there are a couple of days, we are going to be on August, we start with July 12th, next Monday. We'll start a little late, start at 10 o'clock. There's some legal matters I'm going to handle in the morning. What's that? 19th. 19th, sorry. I'm better in the morning. Okay. 19th. Then August 2, we'll be starting a little late, 10 o'clock to accommodate a schedule. And then August 10, we won't be here. So if you need to do something, schedule something, August 10 is a good day to schedule it.
Your Honor,
Yes.
also there's the July 22nd.
And July 22, I've already told you about July 22. These others are new. But July 22, we will not be in session.
What was the time on
On the, it'll be 10 a.m. We'll be just an hour later than planned. Ordinarily, it would be 9. Shoot for 9. Instead, we'll try for 10. Question, yes?
I didn't want to ask, but I have an appointment August 9th. Should I talk to you later about
What, August 9, why don't you write me a note? Basically, I have received notes, and I take those into account. But August 9th, what time are we talking about?
8 o'clock, but I can't, my eyes get dilated and I can't see for a few hours.
I see, so that would be a problem until what time? The morning, or, I don't know how long that lasts.
Depends, probably 9 or 10, 11. But I'll write you.
All right, so it may well be that of course, we'll try to accommodate, and we will try to accommodate you, but you think 10 o'clock would be sufficient, or do you need later?
Usually a couple of hours, because the appointment takes a couple of hours, and then after that, I can't see that well.
And the appointment is at what?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, it's dilated, so dilated for 2 hours, and then you need to transport yourself, so you
So
can't.
maybe 11 or 12 might be safer, maybe 11ish.
I'm gonna discuss it with the lawyer, so we'll adjust our schedule to accommodate you, so if you'll, I'll talk to the lawyers about that.
Your Honor, could the court inquire, I don't know if it'll be possible at all, but since we're now going to be dark on the 10th, could the court inquire of the juror if potentially there's a way to have her eye appointment on August 10th instead of August 9th? Since we're dark anyway, I don't know if that's a possibility.
I can try, but this appointment was made a year ago.
Oh,
Right, okay, well, if they're.
I can try.
Okay, thanks for that, and that's juror number 11.
Doctors aren't as cooperative as lawyers.
That's, yeah. But thank you, I appreciate how cooperative you actually, you are. And we haven't yet, we've received several more stipulations, which are gonna save us some time, save us some witnesses. Some facts are agreed upon, there's no reason for the witness to come to testify about them. So we are continuing to, the lawyers are not, I agree with it, but I mean, the lawyers are making really wonderful efforts outside it when we're not in session to try to narrow the evidence to questions that are actually at issue. So with that, we have the testimony of Robert Durst from the trial in Galveston. And at what point do we leave off, Mr. Miata?
Yes, we're on page 173.
So that's for my use, that's on the court's exhibit, but this is the date of, this is testimony from what date? You have that handy?
Get that information in 1 second.
page we on the PDF?
170.
405. So this is from October 27th, 2003, actually.
October 27, 2003, and this is cross-examination of Mr. Durst, and Ms. Pham is reading the part of Mr. Bennett, the Deputy District Attorney or Assistant District Attorney in Galveston. All right, let's resume.
September 22nd of 2001, you had Zena Simmons clean your apartment.
Yes, sir.
You had, prior to that, using her service on that day. You had never used her service before, had you?
I had never used her service before.
And you gave her a false name?
Correct.
And you didn't give her the same false name that you had been using, James Cordis. You gave her a different false name of Robert Closty?
Yes, sir.
On September 23rd, you left the Four Seasons to check directly into the San Luis, correct?
Correct.
And you checked out of there on October 1st, 2001, correct?
Correct.
You had already paid up your rent to the end of November, correct?
I'm not sure what I paid through.
You purchased a money order on September 12th, 2001 for 2 months of rent, October and November, correct?
I remember $500 or something like that.
You paid your rent on September 12th, 2001, and you purchased a money order for Klaus Dillman for $500, correct?
That's what I recall that saying. Yes, sir.
And then right above that there was a $300 money order also to Klaus Dillman from Dorothy Steiner on that same day, correct?
Without putting my glasses on, do those say one for $500 and one for $300?
Yes, sir.
That's $800.
Yes, sir.
Did I send those to Klaus Dillman?
That's the question. Yes, sir.
I don't recall. Did Klaus Dillman receive those money orders?
I'm showing you States Exhibit 150, which are the guaranteed federal bank records of Klaus Dillman. And it shows 2 money orders from Dorothy Steiner, one for $300 and one for $500, both purchased on September 12th, 2001.
Oh, yes. The biggest money order was $500, so that would definitely take me through November.
So under the terms of your lease, you had paid it up. All you had to give him was a letter saying, I am moving out, correct? Or Dorothy Steiner, all she would have to do was send him a letter saying, I have moved out.
That's all she would have to do?
To fulfill the terms of your lease, correct?
Sure, I guess.
I mean, you had to give notice to move out, correct?
I guess.
I mean, your family is in the real estate business. You don't know whether you had to give notice to move out or not?
Yes, you have to give notice to move out.
Would you agree that a .22 caliber pistol sounds like a firecracker?
I guess I would not. No, sir. It depends on what kind of firecracker.
It's your testimony that after the incident with, well, let me back up. This is a .22 caliber pistol, is that correct? And it is unloaded, correct?
I hope so. Yes, sir. It looks unloaded to me.
Okay, if you would, just briefly. I assume that in my hand is Morris's hand.
Okay.
Because earlier today you had me put my hand on the gun, and I would like you to demonstrate exactly how your hand was on the gun.
It says the witness complies.
Well, where's your hand right now?
Where is my hand?
Yes, sir.
It's where I believe it was when we were struggling for the gun.
Okay, and your testimony is that your hand was on the gun when it went off?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and where's the ejection port?
Right in there.
And your hand was blocking the ejection port, wasn't it?
Let me get the question again. I was holding the gun like this, and from what I remember, I held the gun until I heard it go off.
And that's over the ejection port?
Until my elbow hit the floor, and until I heard it go off, yes. The way I am holding it in my hand is over the ejection port.
Okay, and your hand covering the ejection port. That .22 shell casing is not going to eject, is it?
Say it again.
That .22 shell casing is not going to eject with your hand over the ejection port.
It's going to do something.
If your hand is in the way, it's not going out the ejection port, is it?
When I move my hand, it's going to eject. It's not going to stay in there.
Well, it would get jammed in there, wouldn't it?
I don't know that it would be jammed in there. The slide would go back. I don't know what would happen. What would happen or what did happen.
And after the incident involving Morris, where he was killed, you ran upstairs and pounded on the door, screaming for assistance.
After Morris Black died, I ran upstairs, I knocked on the door, and I yelled out, "I need to call 911" several times.
And you knocked on the table earlier today, counsel knocks on the table, to give us an indication of how hard you knocked, correct?
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't you agree that you could have knocked a lot louder than you demonstrated for the jury? Couldn't you have?
I guess.
But your testimony was that you were frantic to get help for Morris, right?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't knock as hard as you could to try to wake anybody up inside, did you?
I think I knocked as hard as I could.
You also testified or demonstrated for the jury how loud you were screaming for help. I need 911, I need someone to call 911, correct?
Yes, I said I yelled out, "I need someone to call 911."
You could have yelled a lot louder than you did when you were screaming, when you were yelling, "I need someone to call 911."
In here, I'm sure I could have. I think I knocked very loudly against the door, and I think I yelled out, "I have to call 911" very loudly when I did it. Would it have been possible for me to knock and to yell more loudly? I guess I could have. Yes, sir.
Do you think you knocked loud enough to wake somebody up out of a sleep?
Say it again.
Do you think you knocked loud enough to wake somebody out of a sleep?
Yes, sir. Well, I don't know. It depends on how deeply they sleep. For instance, nobody can make a noise to knock me out of a sleep because I sleep with my good ear down on the pillow. So I can't hear anything at all.
You don't think that's loud enough to wake somebody out of a sleep?
I thought I knocked and I yelled loud enough to wake somebody out of a sleep.
But Mrs. Henriquez did not respond to your pleas for help.
I thought I heard some noise at the top of the stairs, but no. Nobody, Mrs. De Enriquez, nor did her husband respond to my knocking and yelling for help.
They had a young baby upstairs at the time, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't hear the baby start crying, did you?
No, sir.
And after being unsuccessful upstairs, you ran down the street to Charlie Burgers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You went up to the woman that was on the phone with her son approximately 6:15 in the morning.
I don't know if it was her son. I believe it would have been, or should have, was her son. Yes, sir.
A young boy with her.
Yes, sir.
And you're still screaming in the same tone, "Someone call 911."
Not, quote, someone, but I need to call 911. Need to call 911.
And she obviously knew you were present, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did she pull her son in closer to her or the young boy closer to her?
Yes, sir.
And she looked at you?
Yes, sir.
And she ignored your pleas for help?
Yes, sir.
And then there was a man who was also in this area near the phone at 6:15 in the morning on the night of September 28th, 2001, correct?
He was leaning against his, I assume was his automobile. Yes, sir.
And how far away was he from you and the lady on the phone?
When I first saw him, he was just moving away from the automobile. He walked right up to the lady.
And how far away was the automobile from where you were?
Well, the automobile was at the curb, whatever the distance from the sidewalk. From the curb is to the payphone is whatever the distance to them. Say that again? I am sorry.
What was the distance between where the car was and where y'all were? Is it 2 or 3 feet, 5 feet, 20 feet?
I hesitate to guess how wide the sidewalk is. I really do.
About the length of a sidewalk?
The width.
A normal sidewalk.
I just don't remember.
but it was close enough for that man to hear your pleas to the woman.
Yes.
And you also made the same plea to him asking for help,
Yes, sir.
and he ignored your pleas for help?
He acted like he understood. He didn't act like he understood me.
In fact, you testified that he was intimidating to you. You thought he was coming at you in a menacing way.
I testified to that.
I believe that was your testimony.
He acted like he was protecting the woman from me.
And then you left after those 2 unsuccessful attempts for help for Morris. You ran to, I believe, you now know to be the Rabagos' house, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you know from her testimony that Mr. Rabago was awake, correct?
I don't really remember from her testimony.
I believe your testimony was you knocked on the door of the Rabagos, correct?
I opened up the storm door and knocked on the interior door. Yes, sir.
You did not yell for help that time, did you?
I didn't yell. I knocked.
Why not?
I don't know.
You would agree with me, wouldn't you, that none of those attempts, unsuccessful attempts to get him help, would have been necessary if you would have had your phone with you?
Correct. My cell phone, I assume you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Witness nods head up and down.
You did have your cell phone with you at the apartment on September 26th.
No, I don't think so. No, sir.
Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 167, which are the AT&T wireless records for your cell phone, starting down here at 558, all the way up to approximately 549.
What did you say?
549.
No. 549?
Yes, sir. Right here, all the way down to 558. These records show that you were bouncing off at the cell tower G01B for those calls, correct?
No, wait a minute. G01B. Yes, sir.
And that was a cell tower that services 2213 Avenue K. And each one of these calls shows that it was bounced off cell tower G01B, which services the area that includes 2213 Avenue K.
Yes, they are. Are these Eastern Time or Central Time?
Either way, it's still off the same cell tower.
Yes. Either way, it's off the same cell tower.
And here on September 27th, the reference is called 523. It shows that call was bouncing off that same cell tower on September 27th, 2001, correct?
523?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Could I see the records again for September the 26th?
Yes, sir. Morris was killed on September 28th, 2001. Sometime that morning, you made a conscious choice to make it appear that Morris Black had moved out, correct?
All except him being killed. Yes, sir.
You made the conscious choice. You had the mental thought process that you need to make it look like Morris Black had moved out.
Yes, sir.
And you knew that Morris Black had been evicted, didn't you?
Well, I didn't know if he was evicted.
You had seen the letter,
I had seen the letter.
but you knew he was supposed to be leaving at some point, correct?
Well, when he had me call Klaus Dillman certainly didn't say that.
You saw the letter, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it said that, quote, "You are no longer supposed to be here. You need to find a new place to live," end quote, generally. That was the substance of the letter.
Yeah, but his lease expired long before that. Klaus Dillman hadn't taken any steps to move him out.
But you knew if he moved out, that would not be surprising to Dillman, nor would he object to it.
No, certainly wouldn't object to it.
And before you can make it look like he moved out, you had to make sure that Klaus Dillman wasn't coming looking for him, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was another one of your mental thought process.
Yes, sir.
And that was a good thought process, wasn't it?
I guess. Yes, sir.
And when you were cleaning up his apartment, you said you came across a folder that had a check that was filled out for October's rent, correct?
Yes, sir. Cleaning up, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
I hadn't gotten to cleaning up at that point. I was looking for the phone numbers to his sister and sister-in-law.
So you were aware enough of what was going on to know what you were doing. You were there looking for phone numbers. You weren't yet to the process of cleaning up.
That's correct.
What time did you get around to cleaning up the apartment, Morris Black's apartment, to make it look like he moved out?
I don't think I did it until Monday.
For whatever reason, you were in the apartment, you came across a check that was already filled out by Morris Black that was filled out to Klaus Dillman that said for the October rent.
Yes, sir.
In your direct testimony, you testified that you couldn't fill out the check and send it to Dillman because you couldn't copy his check, correct?
I couldn't copy his handwriting.
But you just told this jury that the check had already been filled out to Klaus Dillman for October's rent.
There was nothing on the check except October 1 and the rent, which was $300 or $310, whatever the rent was. Just the number, not the written out $300.
And once you had this information that told you how much Morris Black's rent was, didn't you?
I think I probably knew before seeing it on the check. I just don't know now.
It was different than your amount, was it not?
I don't know. Mine was $300 or $310 too. I just don't remember right now. Actually, mine included the utilities, so maybe mine was $350.
Let me show you what's been admitted as states 1 and 2. Your rent was $300 a month, correct?
Where am I looking? No, my rent is $310.
And Morris Black's on the lease was $310 a month, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you knew enough and you were aware enough that Morris Black's rent was only $300, and that's what Dillman needed to be paid for October, correct?
Yes, $310.
But you didn't make that money order for the $310. You made the money order out for only $300, correct?
Is that right? I will take your word for it.
This copy is not very good, but would you dispute that?
I will take your word for it if you tell me it's $300 and I made it out for the wrong amount.
That's exactly how much Morris had been paying all along, wasn't it? $300?
I assume he was paying $310. That's what you showed me in the lease.
But the fact that Morris actually had been paying $300 a month for a number of months, as shown in the records, that's actually what his rent payment was, correct?
I'm getting awfully confused, sir. I'm trying to figure out what your point is.
The point is, you had enough snap to know exactly how much Morris's rent was, even though his lease said it was $310. It was a different amount than on his lease.
I assume the check that I saw said $300 too, if that's what he was paying.
Are you assuming or are you specifically remembering?
No, I don't specifically remember. I mean, you just showed me the records, so the records show it was clearly what I did.
So do you have a specific recollection of going and seeing this check that was filled out?
I remember going in there and looking for the addresses and seeing a rent check for October. I don't remember now what it was for. However, if it was $300 or $310 or whatever.
But you knew enough at the time. You didn't take any notes with you about how much his rent was, did you? You didn't write it down when you went to Walmart?
No.
And once you had that information, you went back to your car, correct?
Yes, sir.
You got in your car and you drove over to Walmart.
Well, as your associate pointed out to me, I must have gone back to the San Luis and changed clothes. But yes, eventually I went to Walmart.
You didn't go to the same place that you had purchased your money orders, had you?
I think I purchased some money orders in Arlen's and some in different places.
The ones on September 12th, 2001, you purchased at Arlen's, did you not?
Yes, the one you just showed me was Arlen's, but I don't know that I got all of them at Arlen's.
And your car, according to your testimony, was at the Temple on 30th Street, correct?
Correct.
And Arlen's is on 25th Street?
Correct.
So instead of going the 5 blocks down to 25th Street, you drove all the way across town to go to Walmart, correct?
Well, I think as your associate had showed me, I must have gone back to the San Luis and changed clothes.
You parked your car and went inside the store.
Yes, sir.
And you saw from the tape you didn't take any notes with you, did you?
No, I was not allowed to see the tape, so I don't know. But I am told the tape shows me buying a money order and mailing the money order, like that.
Would you dispute the tape showed that you did not have any notes with you when you went up to the bank?
No, I would not dispute that.
So you had enough mental faculties about you to remember how much you needed from the time you were at 2213 Avenue K and saw the money, the check that was partially filled out all the way to the time that you got to the first bank at Walmart. You were able to consciously remember how much you needed, correct?
How much I should write the money order for? Yes, sir.
And then after you get the money order, you go back in the car
Yes, sir.
and you fill out the money order?
If that's what the video shows. I don't remember doing this.
You were in the car for about 3 to 4 minutes, correct?
If that's what the video shows.
You don't remember what happened when you were in the car? Is that what your testimony is?
I don't remember all the experience.
But you were able to fill out the money order, put it in an envelope, stamp it, address it, and mail it?
Yes, sir.
So at this point, once that letter is written saying that Morris has moved out and the rent is paid, Morris is gone forever, isn't he?
Say that again, please.
Once you have paid his rent, written a note to Dillman saying, quote, I am moving out, end quote, Morris is gone forever, isn't he?
Yes, sir.
Had no friends that would be looking for him, would he?
Well, maybe his sister or his sister-in-law or Mr. Hanley, but I don't really know of friends of his.
Since November of 2000, you hadn't seen any friends come by looking for him, had you?
No, sir.
No family had come down here looking for him, had they?
No, sir.
He has been evicted. You knew he had an eviction letter, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And you made it appear that he had followed through on that letter and moved out, correct?
I was going to show that he moved out. Yes, sir. Make it appear that he moved out. Yes, sir.
And this is a man that nobody would come looking for.
Yes, sir.
And if someone ever did come looking for him, I mean, he was 71 years old with a bad heart, and nobody knew where he was, you could just assume that he succumbed to his heart condition, correct?
Well, whatever.
That would be a logical assumption if Morris disappeared, right?
Who is making this assumption?
Anybody that could possibly be looking for him.
I will go along with this. I'm not going to argue about...
Your Honor, I have quite a bit more, but this would be a good place to stop. The court says we will stop for today. Now tomorrow your lunch hour will be a little bit different. Your lunch hour will begin at 11:20 and go to about 1:15. Come in tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Be it remembered that upon this 28th day of October 2003, the following proceeding occurred before the Honorable Susan Criss, Judge of the 212th District Court of Galveston County, Texas. Cross-examination by Mr. Bennett. Mr. Durst, let me back up a little bit. One correction I want to go over with you from yesterday. You remember me asking you about you telling Mr. Sistrunk that you didn't remember anything about the dismemberment. You remember me asking you about that? The court says, speak up. Is the microphone on? Go ahead. By Mr. Bennett again. Mr. Durst, did you remember me asking you yesterday when you testified to Mr. Sistrunk that you did not remember anything about the dismemberment?
I do not remember you asking me that.
Directing your attention to September 28th of 2001, after you had gone to the bathroom and looked in the mirror and saw blood on your face, what's the next thing you remember thinking or doing?
Washing my hands and my face.
And then what did you do after that?
I walked out of the bathroom into the kitchen, and I realized that the television was on, and I realized the door was open.
And at some point during this thought process, you realized that you wanted to clean out Morris Black's apartment, correct?
Later that morning, yes, sir.
And how much later that morning?
I got to Chalmers, the records show, around noon, so...
No, sir. I'm asking you what you remember.
Oh. What I remember, it was later that morning.
You don't know what time that morning?
No, sir.
Can you tell this jury whether it was before or after you went to Chalmers, from your memory?
From my memory, it was before I went to Chalmers.
And how do you remember that if you don't remember what time and what happened?
Because I remember making the decision to clean out Morris Black's... to make it appear that Morris Black had moved, and that I should go get garbage bags to put his belongings in, and a drop cloth to roll him up in.
Would that be before or after Mrs. Henriquez saw you slamming the door?
It would be after.
What other choices or things had you thought about had you not chosen to do, and you figured the best course of action was to make it appear that Morris Black had moved out?
Would you repeat that, please?
Sure. What other ideas did you have besides making it appear that Morris Black moved out?
I should go to the police? That I should run away? Those are the ones that I remember.
And you acted on two of the three ideas that you testified to today, correct?
Yes. I did not go to the police.
And at what point in the day did you have the idea to run away?
Right away, I would think. I mean, right away after I had gotten out on the seawall like that.
Well, let's talk about when did you go to the seawall?
Well, after Mrs. De Enriquez saw me slamming the door.
How long after that? Immediately after that or some time after that?
Well, shortly after that, I left the apartment.
Did you walk or take your bike?
I walked.
And how did you get to the seawall? Did you go down 22nd or 23rd Street or go down K?
I don't know.
Well, when you were walking on the seawall, what were some of the businesses you were walking past?
I walked all the way pretty much where the seawall ends on the east side.
Were you jogging or were you just kind of wandering or a brisk walk? How were you walking?
I don't know how I was walking, but I know I was talking to myself because people were looking at me. And a couple of times when I approached those stone benches they have, I could see people suddenly looking in my direction, and I kept trying to catch myself and stop talking out loud. And I assume I was waving my arms and making facial expressions.
Once you got to the end of the seawall, what did you do from there?
Well, sort of where Stewart Beach, beginning East Beach, like, and that's where I kept thinking, I have got to go to the police, but I can't go to the police because they're not going to believe me. Nobody is going to believe that my friend and neighbor is lying shot in the face with my pistol, and this apartment was rented by me, a wealthy person, for $300 a month, dressed up as a mute woman, and there's all this media attention about this Robert Durst person. I just knew the police would not believe me.
You previously testified you were thinking, quote, what would I do, end quote, right? What were you going to do?
I'm having difficulty with what you just said.
I think your testimony on direct that you were thinking to yourself, quote, what am I going to do, end quote, I being Robert Durst, correct?
I am just having difficulty with the context. Certainly it was me I was thinking about, had to do something.
Where did you go after you got to the end of the seawall?
Well, I don't remember, but if the records show I was at Chalmers.
I was just asking you.
Okay, I don't remember.
I'm just asking you what you specifically remember, not what you read or what you have been told. I'm asking you what you remember.
Okay.
After you left the seawall, you don't remember where you went? Is that your testimony?
Correct.
What's the next thing you do remember?
I remember walking into the apartment building,
What time was that?
and I can't state what the records say. What I remember? I don't remember what time that was.
Do you have a record that shows what time you went into the apartment building?
I believe I went to the apartment building after I went to Chalmers, but I have no record. I have no record that shows what time I walked into the apartment building.
And when you walked into the apartment building, did you have anything with you?
I believe I had the bag from Chalmers.
And how long did you stay at the apartment?
I don't know.
Did you have the bottle of Jack Daniels at this point?
No, sir.
And when you went back into the apartment from Chalmers, what were you thinking to yourself?
I was thinking to myself, Morris Black's body is not going to be lying dead in my apartment.
And once you saw Morris Black lying dead in your apartment, what did you do from there?
I took the drop cloth. I went to throw it over Morris Black's body. And I saw the key to his apartment on the string around his neck, where he kept it. And it was in this little puddle of blood.
Now, the puddle of blood around Morris Black diminished from earlier in the day when there was a large pool of blood around his head.
Well, whatever it was around his head. It hadn't diminished, I'm sure.
And when you saw this key, you had the idea that, quote, uh-oh, I need to make sure that Morris Black looks like he moved out, end quote.
No, when I saw the key, I decided I would go next door to his apartment and get the phone number for Gladys or Trudy Black, who I believe Morris had told about me, or at least this friendly neighbor, and I would explain this to them.
You had already made your decision that you needed to run, correct? You did that immediately? That was your testimony, correct?
I don't understand, quote, immediately.
Well, I believe you earlier testified that one of the ideas that you had was to run away. And I asked you when you had that idea to run away, and you said almost immediately.
Almost immediately when I got to the end of the seawall and tried to figure out what I was going to do. At the same time, I realized I had to call the police.
Well, when I asked you when you had the idea to run away, you didn't say, quote, when I got to the end of the seawall, unquote. You said almost immediately. Those are two different answers, wouldn't you agree?
What was the question? Yes, those are two different answers. But I think the question before was, what did you do on the seawall? And I talked about talking to myself. And then we got to the, quote, when did you have the idea to run away?
After you had made the decision to run away, you later made the decision to call and confess, to explain what happened to Morris Black's family, correct?
My idea to call Morris, Gladys, or Trudy Black came after my decision to run away. Yes, sir.
On the 28th, what was your idea of what to do with Morris Black's body?
I think when I was sitting out on the beach, my idea was to roll it up in a drop cloth.
And after you were going to roll it up in a drop cloth, what were you going to do with it?
I don't know that I got that far.
So at no time on the 28th of September 2001, you had any idea of what you were going to do with Morris Black's body other than to roll it up in a drop cloth?
Not that I remember.
While you were in Morris Black's apartment, you came up with the idea that you needed to make it look like he moved out, correct?
I came up with that idea when I was sitting down on the beach after walking on the seawall, talking to myself.
I'm sorry, I am confused, and please correct me when I'm wrong. I thought you had testified that you came up with the idea to make it look like Morris Black moved out when you were digging for the phone number to call Morris's family. And then if I understood your answer to the last question, you said you came up with the idea to make it look like Morris Black moved out while you were on the seawall.
When I walked down to the end of the seawall, catching myself, talking to myself several times, more or less when the seawall ends, where Stewart Beach and East Beach sort of meet, I went and I sat down on the beach and tried to get myself under control and decide what I was going to do. The obvious thing being to call the police. I decided the police would not believe me, so then I decided I would have to make it look like Morris Black moved away, and/or I would have to run away.
You came up with the idea to make it look like Morris Black moved out before you went digging for the phone number?
Your word is, quote, digging, but yes,
Searching through his things.
yes,
Did you start packing up his belongings on the 28th?
no, sir,
Did you shower either at Morris Black's apartment or in your apartment that day?
no, sir.
How do you know that?
Oh, you're asking me what I remember. I don't remember showering in my apartment or in Morris Black's apartment that day. Nor do I remember showering in Morris Black's apartment, ever.
So after you in Morris Black's apartment, you came up with the idea to pay his rent, and you went to Walmart, correct?
I must have gone to the San Luis and showered and changed clothes, or at least changed clothes, as your associate pointed out to me.
Do you remember doing that?
No, sir.
Do you remember going to the Walmart?
No, sir.
And you don't remember anything about that process,
No, sir.
but you do remember having the idea that you needed to pay his rent.
Yes, sir.
And then you followed through with that idea.
Yes, sir.
And then after you paid his rent, you went back to the San Luis and stayed there for the rest of the evening.
Now can I refer to what the records show? My recollection is the answer to your question is yes.
Your recollection is yes?
Yes.
So you remember the rest of the evening after you got back to the San Luis the second time?
I don't remember the rest of the evening at the San Luis, but I don't remember leaving the San Luis.
And then the next morning, you got up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you go after you got up?
I went to 2213.
What time did you get up?
I don't know.
Daylight or dark when you got to 2213 Avenue K?
Daylight?
Was it daylight or dark when you got up?
I believe daylight.
Once you got to 2213 Avenue K, what did you do?
I rolled Morris Black's body up in the drop cloth.
You had already done that on the 28th, according.
I just threw the drop cloth over his body.
And so you rolled him up in the drop cloth on the 29th.
Yes, sir.
And what was the purpose of doing that?
I was gonna roll up Morris Black's body and pick it up.
Were you able to do that?
No, sir. I was able to roll it up. I was not able to pick it up.
And what did you do at that point?
When I realized I could not pick it up, I left the apartment. I left the apartment and I went to Economy Liquor.
Did you walk or ride your bike or drive over there?
I did not ride the bike. I don't remember if I drove or walked.
How did you get from the San Luis to the apartment?
I drove.
And at Economy Liquor, you purchased a fifth of Jack Daniels, correct?
That's correct.
Did you purchase anything else?
I don't think so.
And after you left Economy Liquor, where did you go?
I went back to 2213.
What time did you get back to 2213?
I don't know.
Mr. Durst, you testified that you have seen pictures of what happened to Morris Black's body.
Yes, sir.
It's your testimony to the jury that you don't remember doing any of those things to that body, to his body.
You mean the specifics that your associate was asking me yesterday?
I'm asking you if you remember anything about cutting up Morris Black. Any details at all?
It was like waking up from a dream or a nightmare with blood everywhere. I remember like I was looking down on something and I was swimming in blood. And I kept spitting up and spitting up. And I don't know what is real and I don't know what is not real. That is what I remember.
You have seen the pictures that Galveston Police Department took in apartment number 2?
Yes.
There wasn't blood everywhere when they went in there, was it?
No.
So you cleaned up that blood, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And you did a very good job of cleaning up blood everywhere.
They seem to have found a lot of blood.
A lot of blood. Well, you have heard the testimony that the blood that they were able to find was some specks on the wall, about 22 specks on the wall, correct?
I cleaned it up as well as I could. I did not see any blood when I was finished cleaning it. When I finished cleaning it up, I threw water everywhere with Mr. Clean and sopped it up with pieces of drop cloth.
And that was Saturday or Sunday?
That was Saturday.
You previously testified that you dumped the body out at Channelview on Sunday morning. Is that correct? In the early hours?
Yes.
And you went back to the San Luis?
Yes, sir.
And you made a phone call. Who did you call?
You're going to have to refresh my memory.
Here I am showing you States 199, item number 48, local phone call, 3:23 in the morning, 763-4500.
Yeah, I was shown this record. I understand that person whose name I can't remember is in the lawn care business. Why I would call somebody with the lawn care business, I have no idea.
Do you remember the name of that person?
A strange name, I am told, but no, I don't remember that name. And I don't remember ever knowing that name.
The record that you were shown was a record of who owns that phone number right now, or who owned that phone number back in 2001.
I don't know.
The question was, when you went and made it look like Morris had moved out of his apartment, that you got rid of all of his clothes?
You were asking me if I got rid of them?
Yes, sir.
I tried to.
And you got rid of all of his financial records.
Well, he didn't keep any financial records.
He kept a checkbook, didn't he?
He kept a checkbook?
You got rid of his checkbook, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Well, the checkbook was in the brown folder. I took the whole brown folder with me when I left Galveston.
Did you keep all the information in the brown folder?
I did until I got to New Orleans. Until I got to Mobile, Alabama. Yes, sir.
And what did you do with it once you got to Mobile, Alabama?
Shortly after I left Mobile, Alabama, I threw out that and the other things I had I didn't want. Other things.
So you threw out the things you didn't want, but you did keep the things that you did want, such as Morris Black's driver's license.
Driver's license and Medicare card I kept with either the folder, which the rental car came in with the other things. I believe I kept them, the license and the Medicare card with the folder that I got from the rental car company.
And it's your testimony you kept those things because you wanted to keep these things.
I kept those things because that's what I used to rent the car. Yes, sir.
Well, it's also what you used to rent motel rooms, correct?
No, sir.
You stayed in motel rooms in Mobile, Alabama as Morris Black, did you not?
I didn't use those things. I don't think I showed those things to anybody. I do believe I am sure I used the name Morris Black when I checked into the Marriott or whatever it was.
And how much was the Marriott?
I don't know. I am not sure if it was the Marriott. I am guessing it was a Marriott, whatever all their suites things are called.
Well, at this point when you were in Mobile, Alabama, and you were on the run, you had taken those 5 envelopes of cash with you, correct?
I'm not sure I took 4 or 5 or 6.
And you knew you had about $40-some-odd thousand with you when you left, didn't you?
Well, I left,
New Orleans.
well, just from, I didn't count it. I mean, if I said that at some point, that's my best guess. It could have been 50,000. It wasn't less than 40,000.
And you have a specific memory of how much money you left, did you not?
I took 4 or 5 envelopes, or 6 envelopes. Whether the envelopes were all completely full or not, I don't know. And I never counted out the hundreds to see how many I have.
Isn't it true you told your wife you left with the mid-40s, referring to mid-$40,000?
Well, that's not a bad guess.
And you didn't tell her that you were guessing. You told her how much you left with.
Did you say mid-40s?
Yes, sir.
Well, mid-40s isn't that specific. It's not like $43,386. Mid-40s is obviously a guess.
And you were using that money to fund you being on the run, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were staying at the Marriott Residence Inn, correct?
Sometimes yes, sir.
And you knew and you remember that was $140 a night?
This is on conversation with my wife.
I'm asking you what your memory is, sir.
Right now, today,
Yes, sir.
I don't remember what they charged tonight.
Would you quarrel with the fact that you had previously stated it was $140 a night?
No.
And that you also figuring you could live on $50 a day in addition to that, correct?
If this is something that I told my wife or some conversation you got from way back and you are quoting it, then that's what I said. Sitting here today, I don't remember these things. No, sir.
Well, isn't it true that you calculated how much money you had and calculated how much money and calculated how much you needed to spend every day, and you ended trying to figure out how long to stay on the run with the money you had?
You are asking me what I remember sitting here right now?
Yes, sir.
I don't remember that. No, sir.
Do you remember having those thoughts when you were on the run, that you took the time to sit down and calculate how much money you had and how long that would last?
I don't remember that.
Isn't it true that you told your wife that you knew that with $140 a night for the Marriott Residence Inn and initial living expenses of $50, you would need like $200 a day, and at some 40-some odd thousand, that would last you $200 or 200 days?
Well, if I told my wife that, then my arithmetic was very good.
But after you left Alabama, you eventually made your way up to Danbury, Connecticut, correct?
Yes, sir.
You remember telling your wife that about $50 a night would last $200 a day
No.
for 200 days.
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
Do you deny saying it?
No, I'm not going to deny it. You are reading it from someplace.
And once you were in Danbury, Connecticut, you were staying at these suites at $99 a night, correct?
I have no idea what they cost.
Did you remember telling your wife that you got to Danbury, Connecticut, and you found out the Hilton Garden Inn and the Comfort Suites, and then again at Lehigh Staybridge Suites, they are at least as good as the Marriott Residence Inn, and they are only $99 a night?
I don't know why rich people talk about money so much. But if I said that, then I said that. I don't remember right now, today, what they cost.
Do you deny saying it, though?
What? No, I don't deny saying it.
And then you also figured out what, at that price, $99 a day plus 50 living expenses, could you stay out almost a whole year?
If I said that, I said that.
Do you remember saying it or not?
No, I don't remember any of these conversations at all.
Do you deny that those were your thought processes when you were on the run?
Do I deny that those were my thought processes while I was on the run? I don't remember thinking those things while I was on the run. I don't remember what I was thinking when I was on the run.
Is that the same I can't remember from when you were in Galveston during the cleanup and disposal of Morris Black?
That's a slightly different one.
It's fair to say, Mr. Durst, that while you were on the run, you got into counting your money, didn't you?
No. From what you are quoting my wife, or me as telling my wife, then from that conversation, I would conclude something like that. But I'm not going to say it's fair to say that that's what I was doing. No. I'm also wondering what came before and after that conversation with my wife.
Where did you, between October 18th, when you left Mobile, Alabama, and November 7th in Danbury, Connecticut, where were you?
October 18th, I am not sure. I left on October the 18th, but when I left Mobile, Alabama, was certainly the 17th or the 18th, like that. I got there on the 15th, 16th. And that's about 3 weeks. Where was I? I think it only took 3 days to get up to Connecticut, so I believe that I was in Connecticut from 3 days after I left Mobile, Alabama.
Where were you staying between the time you left Mobile, Alabama, and the time you checked into the Comfort Suites in Danbury, Connecticut? In the early part of November?
I believe there's a Marriott Residence Inn in Danbury. Do you have me staying there? Because I know I stayed there.
And how did you pay for that?
Cash.
And how long did you stay at that hotel?
I was in Danbury, Connecticut for 3 and at most 4 days after I left Mobile, Alabama, until I left Danbury, Connecticut. Let me see if I can agree with November the... When do you have me leaving Danbury, Connecticut?
I'm asking you what your memory is, sir, between October 18th and the first part.
Right. Right to Danbury. If I wasn't at the Marriott Residence Inn, I was in one of the other motels you mentioned, or at a motel you did not mention. But I stayed on that strip in Danbury, Connecticut the whole time.
And when did you get Emilio Vignoni's credit card?
I had Emilio Vignoni's bank statement, his bank account that we had opened in probably the mid-'80s when he started doing handyman type work for me. And I'm sorry, you had asked me when I got it. So I think I had the charge card and I had the bank statements. They were in Dallas prior to my moving out of the Dallas apartment. I took all that stuff to Galveston, and I took all that stuff to New Orleans.
So you had that credit card when you left Galveston?
Yes, sir.
The court says, okay, we are going to take a short 10-minute break, and a recess was taken. The court says, you may be seated, Mr. Durst. You can come up and have a seat again. You may proceed. By Mr. Bennett. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Durst, have you had an opportunity to review a transcript of a conversation that you had with your wife? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's true, is it not, that you had a discussion with her, and in that discussion, you were telling her where you were staying while you were on the run. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you told her that you were staying at the residence, the Marriott Residence Inn, correct?
Yes, sir.
You were telling her it was $140 a night?
Yes, sir.
The court says, speak up, sir.
I am sorry. I was under the impression that you were going to read from the transcript.
That refreshes your memory about what you
Yes, sir.
did and what you knew back in December of 2001, correct?
Correct.
And that you were calculating that if you could live on $200 a day, you could stay out 200 days, correct?
I don't think that's what I said.
Did you say that, quote, I figured the rest of my living expenses would be no more than about $50, no more than $50. So I would need like $200 a day, and I had some 40-some odd thousand that would last me about 200 days, end quote.
That's what I said.
And when you got to Danbury, you told her you were staying at the Hilton Garden Inn, correct?
And I told her what it says in the transcript.
And you told her that you were staying at the Comfort Suites?
That's what it says in the transcript.
After reading the transcript, does it refresh your memory as to what you told her?
Yes, but I would far prefer you to just read the transcript. And I will say that's what I said.
And you also told her that you were staying at the Lehigh Suites, the Staybridge Suites at Lehigh.
Yes, sir.
And that you were staying at those places for only $99 a day, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you were figuring out $150 a day, you could stay out almost a year.
Did I say that?
Do you remember saying that to your wife?
No, I don't remember saying it. If it's in there, I said it.
Let me show you this transcript. If you would just read lines 1 and 2 to yourself.
Quote, and then I was...
Just to yourself.
Yes, sir.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, sir. Just like you said it was.
Well, I think it's a little different than what the statement actually was. Quote, then I was figuring at $150 a day I could last for almost a year, end quote.
Yes, sir.
and you told your wife that you got into counting your money. Is that correct?
I don't know if it says that.
Well, you told her, quote, "That's how I got around to shoplifting. That's how I got into the shoplifting, and that's why I'm in jail, because I started counting my money." Excuse me. Quote, "I started counting money," end quote.
I was blaming everything going wrong with my life on my wife. Yes, sir, I said that.
And that's true, you were counting money at the time.
It is what I said in the transcript is what I said. But what I was doing is something else.
You said you were doing something else?
I'm saying because of this very brief conversation that you have taken out of my telephone conversation with my wife, does not mean that you can draw that to its logical conclusion and assume that's all I was doing.
Well, did I misstate what you had said to your wife?
No, sir. I didn't say I had just been counting my money for the last 6 months.
Well, but you did say that's how you got around to shoplifting. And that's why you were in jail, because you started counting your money.
Yes, sir. That's just what I said.
And that was right after you talked about calculating how long you could last on the amount of money you had, correct?
It's all in that same conversation, yes, sir.
You testified that Morris Black shot at the eviction letter approximately 45 days Morris Black received that eviction letter approximately 45 days before you even bought the .22 caliber pistol. Is that correct?
There's a date on the eviction notice. I don't remember what it is. The .22 was brought on August the 30th, which has been stated a lot of times in this court. If that's 45 days, that's 45 days.
And your testimony is that he suddenly got angry about the letter approximately 2 months after he received this letter.
No.
That's when he was shooting at it?
Oh, from the first time he showed me the eviction letter, he was getting angry about the eviction letter. Angry / I don't want to use the word proud angry. He liked to show it to people.
This is a Wyndham Note hotel resort with handwriting that was recovered from the trash of the apartment number 2. This is your handwriting, sir.
Yes, sir.
And down at the bottom, the lower left hand on the back of the envelope, it has GALV and then NEWS. Is that correct?
That is.
And that's the website for the Galveston Daily News, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had written that down on that piece of paper because you were checking the website so when you were on the run to keep track of how this investigation was going?
Yes, sir. There's a date on there of April 28th. Is that what it is? I didn't get a chance to look at it much.
The reason you came to Galveston, I believe your testimony, was that you were leaving New York because of the investigation into the disappearance of Kathy was resurrected. Correct?
I disagree with the word resurrected.
It was reopened.
Okay.
And you came here as a mute woman, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that mute woman didn't work out for you very well, did it?
It didn't work out for me. Would you be more specific, please?
Your wig got caught on fire. You went to the men's restroom. You started talking to people.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that if someone wanted to steal the identity of another person and assume that identity, Morris Black was the perfect person to do that to?
No.
Morris Black was a loner, wasn't he?
Yes, sir.
And you knew that.
Yes.
You know Morris Black was supposed to be leaving, correct? Been evicted?
I knew he had received a notice from Klaus Dillman. Yes, sir.
And he didn't have any friends that would be looking for him.
Yes, sir.
He didn't have the family that would be coming to look for him.
I always wondered if Trudy or Gladys Black would have looked for him.
They hadn't come down during the time you knew him, had they?
No, sir.
You made sure the landlord wouldn't be looking for him, didn't you?
I intended to make it appear that he had moved. Yes, sir.
You wanted to keep Morris Black's driver's license and Medicare card.
That is what I used to rent the car in both New Orleans and Mobile, Alabama. I kept it with the rental bill, if you will, rental documents.
And you became Morris Black after he was dead, chopped up, and dumped in the bay, didn't you?
No, sir.
You impersonated Morris Black, didn't you?
Just to rent those 2 cars.
And to stay in hotels?
I didn't use the license I had to stay in a motel because...
But you were Morris Black in that motel, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness. The court says, all right, you may proceed.
Well, we're just about done with it. I think we can finish this in about 5 minutes. Or were you just reading that at the ask for a break back then?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Well, that,
You threw
no, that's
me.
what it says.
That's what it says. Okay, I thought you wanted a break before you even read
Well, I
it.
did. I mean, it's
Oh, okay, all right. You're messing with me. Okay.
The court says you may be seated. Mr. Durst, come on back up. You may proceed. Bob, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. And first, I want to ask you, you mentioned that Morris Black had some tools, kept some tools in his apartment.
Yes, sir. That's his closet, and that is where he kept the tools.
Bob, you mentioned Morris Black said that he would fix the damage when he shot at the eviction notice.
He said he had spackled it.
You were asked on cross-examination to direct first Mr. Sistrunk and then Mr. Bennett in demonstrating what happened when Morris Black met his death.
Yes, sir.
The way it was demonstrated by them, is that the way it happened, or was it different?
It definitely was not the way anything happened that... Let me make it shorter. No, that was not the way it happened.
Well, then I want to try and do it again based on the instructions that you've given to us and how it happened and your description of how it happened. I'm going to be Morris, and I'm going to sit with my chair. This chair, the way has, are the legs similar to this chair, to the office chair that was in the apartment?
Yes, sir.
Then you'll have to keep your voice up.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to sit, I want to get to the point where you come into the door, Bob, and if the door would be over to where I am pointing, the right part to my right.
I think they just have to start...
Court says you need to keep your voice up, sir.
I am sorry. The oven is back where the third to the right juror is. Rather, the fourth to the right. Third to the left juror is sitting. And I will go over there and come up from the oven, which is sort of similar to the way...
Would I be sitting in about the same, similar to the same?
Move the chair back a little bit.
Okay.
Fine. The gun is sitting here. So this is the drawer. And I first get down, and I reach my hand underneath the drawer to try to see if the gun is there, and I don't feel it. I get down and look. So I'm like this, and it isn't there. And I come and I said, Morris, where's the gun? Morris, where's the gun?
Was Morris looking at you?
He was looking at me.
Then what did he do?
As soon as I started saying, where's the gun, and started to get up, he turned back that way and picked up the gun and turned...
And then he came back up?
Turned back towards me like that, and he fell over the chair leg.
Like that?
Well, sort of. The last part of it wasn't real good, but...
So you had your hand on the gun?
I had my hand on the gun.
Did you have your finger in the trigger?
No, I had my hand on top of his...
And you wrestled with him? What happened to the gun?
Well, he turned towards me, so he had the gun like this, and he was pushing it like that. And then we fell. Okay, that's sort of close.
Thank you. Sit down. Was your finger ever on the trigger, Bob?
No, sir.
In hindsight, if you could change the events that led up to Morris Black meeting his death, what would you change?
I guess I would change a lot of things, but the one thing I have thought about a zillion times is that I could have taken that gun out of that apartment. If I had done that, none of this would have happened.
You've been clean and sober now for how long?
October the 30th, it will be a year and 11 months. That's day after tomorrow, Thursday.
You have had before your arrest here no sustained, no consistent psychiatric analysis or treatment. Is that right?
That's correct.
Since you've been in jail, you've had psychiatric, psychological analysis and testing, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's been a lot of evidence, a lot of discussions, at least from the prosecution standpoint, about the things that happened after Morris was dead. Almost nothing about the way he died, but what happened after he was dead. First, I have to ask you, of all the things that you did after he was dead, did anything that you did change the way he died?
What I did after Morris was shot?
Yes.
No, sir. Nothing I did after would have changed that.
As you sit here now, and in hindsight, and if you could, what would you change about what you did in the days and weeks and months following Morris's death?
Well, as soon as I realized that Morris was dead, I should have gone right to the police.
You didn't.
No, sir. I panicked and I ran away.
You've been running away all your life.
Well, not quite like this, but yes, sir.
What else would you change after Morris was dead,
Other than going to the police?
other than going to the police?
Well, it seems if I had gone to the police, nothing that I did would have happened. I wouldn't have dismembered him. I wouldn't have run away. None of that would have happened. I would have gone to the police.
And I want to ask you to describe for us briefly what your memory is like of the days, just the days or two, immediately after Morris died and the dismemberment occurred. What is your memory like of that horrible time?
During that weekend, it's come out here, I remember certain things happening two different ways. I repeatedly would get things out of order. There's things that the records show that I did that I have no recollection of doing, but obviously I did them. It's just not clear. I don't know how else to put it.
That's the witness, Your Honor.
The court says, "All right," by Mr. Sistrunk. You came into this courtroom with a story to tell, did you not? Your version of the facts?
I came into this courtroom knowing that I would have to testify and intending to tell everyone what happened.
You came in with your version to tell us, right?
I came in prepared to tell you what happened.
You were fully prepared to tell us what happened, right?
Yes, sir.
The repetitive quote, I do not remember, end quote, the first came when we started asking you questions. Would you agree?
Well, Mr. Ramsey wasn't as repetitive as you are.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. I mean, you can't even remember the days that you saw Morris Black immediately prior to the killing, can you?
I remember certain days that I saw him, and I remember certain days that I didn't see him, but I don't remember each day.
It's hard to keep up with your version of the story, is it not, Mr. Durst?
No. My version of the story? I don't have a version of the story. And I've not told any lies while I've been in this room.
Well, you recall saying when I asked you about certain dates on the calendar that you specifically saw him on the 24th. You saw Morris Black on the 24th of September.
I certainly saw him specifically on the 24th.
Then on direct examination by Mr. DeGuerin, do you recall the question, quote, then during that next week, the 24th, the 25th, 26th, and 27th, did you have any contact with Morris Black, end quote? And your answer was no.
Yes, I think that Mr. DeGuerin was asking me if, after Morris shot the pistol in my apartment.
Any subsequent contact?
Yes.
Do you think that was just an answer for subsequent contact?
Yes, sir.
After the 24th? When exactly did Morris tell you that he speckled the wall?
On the 18th. Let me see. He shot at the eviction notice on Monday the 17th. He told me, well, it could have been the night of Monday the 17th, either the night of Monday the 17th, or the 18th, or the 19th.
You took the key, you kicked him out, and you really don't remember when he came back.
I don't remember when I let him come back in. Either it was that night or this next day. I know he was there several times between then and when I drove to Houston on the 19th.
And he helped you load up on the 18th. Wasn't that your testimony?
Well, the 18th, 19th. I think mostly the 19th. But if I said the 18th, then he helped some on the 18th too.
So maybe he came into your home while you were present. Is this what your testimony is? He spackled it while you were there?
Yes, I let him come in.
You know what spackled is?
When I think of spackle, I think of stuff that goes on dryboard.
Mr. Durst, when Mr. DeGuerin asked the question, your answer was, quote, he told me he spackled it. And when I asked the question, you were there and when he spackled it, which is it?
I let him into the apartment. He told me he spackled it. I didn't stand there and watch him spackle it. I don't even think he even used spackle.
And regarding changing anything, you wouldn't change the fact that Mrs. Henriquez saw you that morning if you could redo what you did on September 28th.
No, sir.
Nothing further, Judge. The court says you may proceed.
That's all.
The court says, thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you for that reading. You may step down. Thank you for the reading. Appreciate it. We have some exhibits to mark, and then we can have a break. What are our exhibits?
We have a two-page exhibit stipulation sheet, Your Honor, that we'd like marked for identification as People's 199.
Yes.
And as far as the exhibits that are referenced in the testimony transcript, we have a flash drive containing the video animation, the recreation of the shooting by the defense. That does not have a previous exhibit number, but it's now People's 199A. We have States 150, a 331-page document, which is now, it was previously marked as People's 185D. States 152, an 8-page document, 199B. States 167, a 20-page document, People's 199C. States 199, a 17-page document, People's 199D. States 505, a 1-page photograph, 199E. States 590, a 1-page photograph, 199F. States 598, a 1-page photograph, 199G. States 601, a 1-page photograph, People's 199H. And finally, Defendants 49, a 7-page document, as People's 199I.
All right, they may be so marked. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our break until 3:30. Do not talk about the case. Don't converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with the case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. We'll see you at 3:30.